In SAP ECC, we have client-based architecture, right? So there will be three layers: presentation layer, application layer, and database layer. So there in RAP also we will have, but I mean we will be connecting through Eclipse, and then we will be developing applications there. So that is the thing. So there will be three: presentation layer, application layer, then database layer. So whatever web code that we used to write on application layer, right? And then we used to communicate with the database layer, maybe SAP database or Oracle, MS SQL, and sometimes we used to have some interfaces. So for that, we used to write native SQLs, right? Sometimes RFC also to get the data from other system. So that is about SAP system architecture, and this is the evolution of the ABAP programming model. So after classical ABAP, this BOPF was introduced, right? So mostly, if I mean, do you have worked anyone on transportation management module? Yeah, so there you might be aware that BOPF, we use BOPF, so business
Yes.
object processing framework, to find out the BO for route, item, those kind of things, right? And also we used to write code inside determination validations. So this RAP is extended version, or you can say the on top of BOPF, kind similar kind of thing, right? So this is the, I mean, evolution of the ABAP programming model. If you see the ABAP platform less than 7.4, we used to have things like classical ABAP report programming and function modules, RFCs, correct? And after this 7.5, we had OData services and CDS views. And then in the new thing in the cloud, we have RAP, right? So I mean, not talking about all these things because anyway, we are going to see these things in detail practically. Just I'm giving you the overview. So evolution of the web programming model. You can see in the second SEGW core data services, CDS based BOPF, and how we can generate the OData services from the CDS view. So introduction to ABAP RAP. So RAP is an architecture for development of SAP HANA optimized OData services. And in GUI, you used to have like we will develop RAP, I mean the reports, and then in GUI itself, we used to show the output, which was not like UI5 application, but in RAP, with the help of annotations, so we will be able to make our own application similar to UI5. Okay, and RAP is available in different products. It is also available on on-premise as well as on BTP and on cloud, public cloud, private cloud. And RAP is totally based on the CDS view. So the base thing will be CDS view. So on top of CDS views, you will be building our RAP application. So that is the one thing. And RAP framework uses Fiori elements to design front end of the application. Fiori elements is nothing but UI notations. There are different types of notations we have. So we will be seeing them also. And RAP is available in on-premise after 7.5, 56 or 7.5. Okay. So now what is web RAP? So RAP consists of set of concepts like I told CDS views, then there will be service definitions, metadata, file creation like adding annotations, service definitions, consuming them, and creating OData services on top of these CDS views that we have already created. And then IDE, that development tools we are going to use is Eclipse. We will be installing Eclipse, and then we will be adding the web development tools in the Eclipse, and then we will start our development. Okay. And this is the classification of ABAP RAP model within the evolution of ABAP programming model. So as we can see, classical ABAP programming, it was totally transaction based. I mean, T code we used to open and write our code and see the output of our uh, code. Or maybe if we have done some enhancements, then we can see how it is impacting our standard applications. So in GUI, you used to have pre-built applications, right? And in the form of T code, we used to have those applications. We can open that applications using the T codes. Then after classical ABAP, BOPF came. So BOPF is Business Object Processing Framework. Mostly this BOPF we are using in transportation management module. If you are working on SD, then SD or FI, then BOPF, I think you cannot use there. BOPF was totally designed for transportation management module. And in BOPF, we used to have concept like business object, like for route, what is the business object? For item, what is the, because in transportation management, we have route tables. So all other tables are associated to that route table. So that's how we have, you used to have multiple types of business object. And then we can write our code in, as you have worked on SD or other modules, so there we can do the enhancement using user exit or BADI. But in transportation management, we cannot have those flexibility. User exit, we do not have exits. So we can write our code inside determinations. And then after this BOPF, ABAP RESTful programming came into the picture. And from past few years, RAP is the most important thing. I mean, and also highly in demand. So if you work on any clean core based projects, so there you will be developing all kind of objects using RAP. Because if you are working on clean core, so you cannot use user exit, you cannot use customer exit, you cannot do implicit enhancements. So there we will have to use RAP. Either we can create our own custom RAP kind of API which will or RAP BO which will do that enhancement. Or if it is a standard related things, then we will have a standard because SAP has already given a lot of a standard RAP BO business objects, so we can utilize them. We will see them all in our practical session. And let's talk about the comparison between classical ABAP and RAP model. So if we talk about the architecture, then classical ABAP is monolithic. We know that there are multiple modules which are integrated, and if we write some code in SD user exit, so that may also impact somewhere else, right? So it was tightly coupled. I mean, the monolithic means all modules are integrated together. So there are no layers. But in coming to the ABAP RAP, we will have layered based development. So layer one, layer two. So in layer one, data modeling will come. In layer two, service based things like service definition, service binding, and layer 3 we can expose and we can consume them. Then classical ABAP was applicable to on-premise, okay? And ABAP RAP we can develop application on on-premise, on cloud, or on BTP. And user interface is SAP GUI and WebDyn Pro in classical ABAP, but here in ABAP RAP we will be having Fury elements, means a kind of UI application using the annotations and data models. So for classical ABAP, you used to have dictionary tables, right? But in ABAP RAP, we won't be using directly the tables, but on top of those tables, or maybe using a standard CDSB, we will be developing our RAP applications. Okay. And in classical ABAP, we used to mostly write our business logic either in the form of reports, classes, or function modules. And in ABAP RAP, we'll be writing our codes inside the behavior definition. And then tools ID we used to have in classical ABAP is SAP GUI, but in ABAP RAP we'll be having Eclipse ABAP development tools. Okay. Now let's talk about the RAP availability in SAP products. What are the different SAP products where RAP we can build our RAP application? So there are major three SAP products where we will be developing our RAP application. One is SAP BTP ABAP environment. So this SAP BTP is one platform, right? And in BTP we have multiple services. So to build our RAP applications, we will have to subscribe our ABAP environment in BTP. This is ABAP environment is a service in BTP. And another product is SAP S/4HANA Cloud. It can be private cloud or public cloud. So in both the form, we can build our RAP application. And a third one is on-premise. But on-premise, the version should be greater than or equal to 7.56. Then only we will be able to build our RAP application. So these are the three different products SAP has provided. There we can build our RAP application. So, I mean, have you worked on any kind of cloud-based projects, maybe private cloud?
No, sir.
Okay, so the difference mainly is in public cloud if you are working. So there you cannot write your classical code, I mean classical ABAP code. Let's say you are trying to call some BAPI, right? That is the classical thing which you cannot use in public cloud. But if you are working on the private cloud, then you will be able to use those classical things. So that is the difference in public cloud and private cloud. So mostly right now in the market, projects are, let's say, some of them are migrating to S4 HANA, or some of them are implementing to private cloud or public cloud. If they are also going on private cloud, they are following the clean core approach. So there are different types of package, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So let's say if the requirement it cannot be achieved without using BAPI, then in that case you will have to create the wrapper class in tier 2 level and then release them and use it in tier 1. So if you are doing any development in tier 1, which is considered as public cloud kind of development, so that has to be released all the time. Then only you will be able to use in tier 1, and it is always cloud ready, or you can say it is running on cloud. And now let's talk about the layers of RAP. So RAP model has three layers. One is data modeling and behavior. So data modeling we will be doing using the CDS views. I mean the data logic we will be writing there, from where to fetch data, how to join multiple entities, multiple CDS views. Those kind of things we will be doing in CDSB, and that is called as data modeling. And inside the behavior, so once we create the RAP service, so one behavior class will get generated. Inside that class, we'll be writing our custom logic to manipulate, or maybe data manipulation kind of thing, how to send the data, how to update the data, like that. Okay, then comes business service. So in business service, we will be creating the service definition and service binding. So service binding will be used in the applications, and if we are going for integration to with third party, so in that case, we will be sending our API to the third party. And then the service consumption. So service consumption is here like either UI5 or maybe front end, or maybe some third party, say CPI. So these are the three different layers RAP is based on. Okay, then data modeling and behavior. So data model is collection of different entities involved in a business scenario. For example, sales order, or maybe purchase order, or any other requirement can be. RAP uses CDS view to define and organize the data model. The behavior describes what can be done with the data model. For example, how the data should be created, updated, or deleted. The behavior can be implemented using custom ABAP logic. So to write the our custom ABAP logic, we will be writing them in behavior implementation class. And if we are building on cloud, I mean BTP or maybe public cloud, then we cannot write our own those classical codes. There will be some modifications. If it is not released in public cloud, then we cannot use, and we will have to find some alternative, and we will write like that. And I mean, there will be EML statements also. So entity manipulation language. Have anyone idea about this EML? It is not similar to our classical ABAP. But like let's say we want to modify or we want to update table. So we used to write update this table name and from work area. So but in the EML we want to be writing in that way. Instead we will be using modify entities. Okay, then let's go to the next slide. So service definition, business service. Service definition is used to define what part of the CDS view behavior definition will be exposed to next layer. Let's say we have built six CDS views, and we don't want to expose all those six CDS views to the front end. Let's say we want to just expose three CDS views, and that can be handled in the service definition. And then service binding. So service binding will be built on the service definition. So service definition is the mandatory thing before creating service binding. And in the service binding, we will be differentiating whether it is OData V2 or OData V4. Or if it is UI application, then we will be selecting OData V2 UI or OData V4 UI. If it is API, then in that case, we will be selecting web APIs. And we can select OData V2 or OData V4. Then comes service consumption. So service can be exposed as a UI service or web API. So we will have to keep in our mind that if it is like let's say we are exposing our service to BTP, and we are building our application on BTP using mobile services. So then we will have to select it as web API. If we are selecting, or if we are going to design our transactional app based on the annotations, then in that case we will be selecting as UI. And it is the public interface for any OData client to access the OData service. For example, you can consume a web API from another OData service. That is also possible. Maybe we can consume our API in CPI, and also we can use it in BTP for mobile services, mobile development, mobile apps. And this is the under architecture of RAP. So the base thing will be our database, and which will be SAP HANA database, and then comes domain specific implementation. So we'll be creating CDS views based on the requirement, and then we will expose them. And finally, the app, SAP Fiori apps, or maybe if it is we are going to use it for integration services, then we will be sending the APIs to the third party, maybe CPI or some other third party. So third layer is about business service exposure. So service binding also comes in the business service exposure. Okay. You can see there are three different things in business service exposure: UI services for SAP Fiori and analytical clients, integration services for process and data integration or database web APIs, business events. We will also see what are the events, how we can trigger the events. In SAP GUI, you used to have whenever we can do some activity, let's say we are creating a sales order. At that time, also in the back end, some business object repository, some business will be, some events will be triggered, right? In the similar way, in RAP, we have provided events for all the standard like sales order creation, sales order change. So those things also we will see. Then finally, if you want to display it as SAP Fiori apps, then we will be exposing it as UI service. Okay. So let's say in classical ABAP, we used to write select query on BBAK table. If it is Claude, then we cannot use that select star on BBAK. Instead, we will have to find the a standard CDS view for BBAK table, and we will be writing our query on that standard CDS view. And you can also write select queries, but not on the database table directly. Instead, you will have to find the CDS views, and then we will write select queries on that. Instead of writing that select query, we can use read entities. That is also EML. So we'll see the different types of statements that we have in EML to interact with the database to perform our business logic. Okay. What are the things involved in the RAP? So we'll be having concepts. Definitely, we'll be having CDS views. Those are concepts. Then tools, frameworks, language, best practice. So as a language, we will be using EML. Okay. And RAP itself is a framework. So our tools we are going to use is Eclipse web development tools, and language will be our EML. Yeah, then what and where to develop with RAP? So RAP, we can use it for service development, SAP Fiori, UI services, web APIs. Then it is universally usable programming model. So we can use these RAP developments greenfield projects as well as in brownfield developments. Then available on premise and in the cloud. So on premise and in the cloud, SAP S/4HANA private cloud as well as public cloud, and SAP cloud platform also called as BTP. And while developing our application on BTP, we will have to subscribe this ABAP environment service in BTP. And this is the RAP application development flow. Let's say whenever we are going to create one RAP application, so what should be the approach? And what will be the bare minimum thing, minimum objects that has to be created in order to show the or in order to display the RAP application. So right, we will start from a database table. Either it can be custom table or maybe some standard existing table. Or instead of using that database table, so we can also use a standard CDS views or custom CDS views. So this first thing will be database table, or we can say it as a data source from where our data is coming, whether it is coming from the database table or from CDS view. So that is the first thing we have to decide. If developing some custom application for which no standard CDS view is there, then we can create our custom database table, and we can use them. Then comes interface CDS view. So interface CDS view, we will be writing our logic. I mean, the just this select kind of thing to get the data. No further calculation. Let's say we want to aggregate some values. Those things we will not be writing in the interface CDS view. We will be just projecting, or we will be just fetching the data from the data source, which we have created in step one. Then comes root CDS view. So root CDS view, let's say we have sales order app. Whenever we open BA01, we can see there are multiple tabs, right? Sales tab, item tab, or shipping,
Right.
scheduling, right? So to build those kind of things, we have to create one root CDS view. So let's say take one example. We are going to create one sales order app. in which we want to display sales order header data and item data. So here we have to, because we do not have data at header level, we cannot create item, right? So to provide that kind of restrictions, we will be having one root CDS view, and in one application there will be only one root CDS view, and it is mandatory we have to create one root CDS view. Otherwise, you won't be able to create the behavior definitions. So this is the third step. Then consumption view. So consumption view or projection view, both are same. And we also call this consumption view as projection view sometimes. So on top of this root CDS views, we will be root CDS view, will be creating consumption view and then metadata extension. So in the metadata extension, we will be adding our annotations to show application in the front end. I mean, to provide the level of a field, to provide the position of a field, to hide some field, those kind of things we will be adding in the metadata extension. So, and then there are two kinds of things, whether sometimes our application, if it is read only, then we will directly create the service definition and service binding. If it is not read only, then definitely we are going to do some update kind of thing or some other activity. So for that, we will have to define the behavior definition. And once we define the behavior definition, there we will implement the class, behavior implementation class, and then service binding, service definition, service binding. So this is going to be the RAP application development flow. If you develop any kind of application or if you are developing any kind of API, then this is the same procedure we will have to follow. This slide is very, very important because this is the development flow we will have to. And the RAP framework has two different scenarios, managed and unmanaged, that we will talk about in our training sessions. Then comes the layer of RAP visual diagram that we have already discussed, data modeling and behavior, business service, service consumption. So let's go to the next slide. And yeah, this is the key takeaways and next steps. So ABAP RAP enables cloud-ready transactional apps based on CDS views, ABAP and Fiori elements available on SAP BTP and S4HANA. And next step is explore RAP architecture, practice development flow in ADT. So this was all about the presentation, in the concepts, or you can say the overview kind of thing. Yes, so this is the course content. I mean, it is divided in modules. So in module one, we will be going to see the BTP overview, how to create BTP account, and then what are the services and key benefits of RAP architecture. So I mean, the module one will be mostly about the BTP. So we will be getting comfortable with the BTP. Okay. I mean, do you have anyone experience in BTP? I mean, just kind of overview thing. What are the services? How we can connect to our on-premise system? Any idea about that? And then there will be session on CDS view types. I mean, what are the CDS views? Different types of CDS views, and how we can create them. And we will see the associations, DCL, data control language. And then comes module two, prerequisite and development setup. So how are we going to make our Eclipse ready for this RAP development? Then CDS views, and we will be building our applications in module two. Then module three, so building the first RAP application. So I mean the RAP development layers, data model, behavior service, then creating CDS based business objects, defining CDS entities and CDS views, and creating behavior definitions and implementations. Then there are two different types of scenario, managed versus unmanaged RAP scenarios. We will also discuss them. Then service definition and binding in RAP. Then module 4, behavior implementation in RAP. So yeah, as we saw in the PPT, that crude operations that we will be handling in the behavior implementation class, and working with determinations, validations, and actions. And also there are a few more things like draft and all. So we will also discuss them. This is not added in this. And then UI integration with Fiori elements, those metadata extension file, writing annotations, developing a custom UI with SAP UI5 and RAP services. Then module 6 talks about the advanced RAP concepts, working with unmanaged scenarios in RAP, extending RAP business object, RAP and event-based consumption, communication. So then authorization and security in RAP applications. We will be also seeing like how to send events from our SAP system to some third party. Okay, we will discuss that. We will see the error handling and debugging in RAP. How can we debug our RAP code? If we find any bug in our application then how can we debug and rectify them? Then comes performance optimization and best practices in module 7. So optimizing RAP queries and CDS views, RAP and parallel processing, handling large data sets and pagination. Let's say in report we used to upload an Excel file, right? So how we can achieve the same thing in module, in RAP. So there will be some requirements in real time when you want to when user want to upload the Excel sheet, and from there they should be able to update the data into the corresponding tables. Okay, and module 8, deployment and integration, transporting RAP applications, RAP in on-premise versus cloud, and integrating RAP with external APIs, RAP and side-by-side extension with SAP BTP. Okay, so this is going to be our course content during this training session. So going forward, if you are working on any project, maybe clean core project, be it on private cloud or public cloud, so RAP is the must thing. So if you leave this form, the Adobe forms apart, then all other requirement will be done using the RAP.